Hello there. You're watching the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the journalist and author Rachel Shabi and the entrepreneur Wilfred Emmanuel-Jones. And they're in the studio for us. What a treat. Let's see first what's on the front of some of those pages. The Observer, their calls for an investigation into hospital bosses who failed to act on concerns over Lucy Letby. There you go, the Observer front page there. The Sunday Times has another development in the Letby case. Their headline is, Killer Letby was offered a role at the top children's hospital after witch hunt. The Mirror leads with the Women's World Cup. Their headline, Lioness We Can, as the nation prepares to support the team in the final tomorrow. Same story on the front of the Sunday People as they report that Captain Millie Bright is urging England to glory. Come on, England. Support for the Lionesses on the front page of the Sunday Star too. Orders from the King, a message to the Lionesses on the front page of the Mail and on the front page of the Sunday Express, an exclusive on the boats crisis. Just a reminder, by scanning this QR code during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch us. Now, as I said, we're joined today by Rachel and Wilfred. Good evening to you both. Thank you so much for coming on. So, apart from the last one on the boat crisis, the front pages really are two stories. Lucy Letby, horrific case that we've been following so extensively here, and this match tomorrow, the final. Let's start with the Observer. Rachel, do you want to just take us through that? It's about Lucy Letby. There you go. Investigate hospital bosses. Letby trial expert urges the police.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the North of England correspondent Josh Halliday, and he's obviously spent quite a few months following this case, and now can reveal a lot of information that previously we weren't able to have access to. And so one of the things that's been emerging very strongly is how people who tried to blow the whistle on this were repeatedly ignored, which is devastating to hear, but to actually be those people who are trying to raise the alarm and have this concern about something going terribly wrong in the care of, you know, the most vulnerable humans, babies, and being dismissed and ignored, and in some cases forced to apologise to Lucy Letby in a very sort of Kafkaesque twist. So this is what The Observer and some other of the papers are focusing on, revealing in a conversation with Dr. Evans, whose evidence was central to the case, concerns that the management of this hospital were grossly negligent in the way that all of this was handled.
I mean, I think it's correct that this story is still on the front pages. Absolutely. And that they're now going down the route of actually investigating these managers. And I would say this is a lesson to all of us here, because this is a classic example of not trusting your gut. All too often, people wait for the evidence before they make any decisions. And in my experience, your gut tends to know before your head does. And eventually, she was actually given another job. And so therefore, there must have been, eventually they decided we need to actually do something about it. And so what's horrific about this story is that these people who are in a position of responsibility didn't actually act quick enough. And the thing that I find really annoying, because I spent a lot of time in hospitals, and the people tend to work in the NHS always say it's in the patient's interest. If doctors are telling you that babies are dying, the patient is dying, actually, you shouldn't be waiting for the evidence. You should be really getting very alert to try and find out what is happening. And also, I want to find out, all these organisations have governors. What were the governors doing? Did the doctors have access to go beyond the managers to say, look, we are concerned and we really do think we need to do something about it? So it tells me that the whole system needs to look at, because they're being trapped by what I call process and procedures. And there is a style of manager who just hides behind that. And when they're actually faced with issues like this, they don't do the right thing. So I'm glad that we're now pushing down to look at the people who are in charge, and we should learn lessons from this, anybody who's in a position of management.
Let's have a look at the Sunday Telegraph as well, because obviously that it leads with this trial. And you look at what she did and you think absolutely horrific, you can't comprehend it. But then it's this additional layer of the frustration of people who are calling and saying, something's going on here, and people just completely disregarding it.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. And, you know, as appalling as this must be for the parents, I mean, obviously bad enough to lose a child, but to lose a child in these circumstances is just another level of anguish that, you know, I'm sure that everyone reading this is thinking of those families, and our hearts are with them. And then there's the other layer of the people actually who were concerned and trying to raise that concern to a level where it will be actioned. And I think that's another level of human distress going on with those professionals who knew there was something wrong and were trying to draw attention to it and were repeatedly dismissed. The Telegraph is focusing on the British Medical Association, which obviously represents doctors. Now, they have a regulator, and they're suggesting that hospital management should have a similar regulator with the same sort of teeth, so that there is an accountability at that managerial level where it does appear that things went so badly wrong and so tragically wrong.
We've got the sentencing that's going to happen on Monday, and then we've got this independent inquiry. What do you think about this independent inquiry and the criticisms that it doesn't have enough teeth? It can't demand that witnesses appear.
Well, I understand that one of the reasons they've gone for this type of inquiry is to do something fast, because I think we need to try and learn from this very quickly and then implement it. The thing about having a public inquiry, it's years. So I could understand the dilemma, but I would actually probably go down the route of having this quick inquiry so we could then put processes in that's going to try and avoid all this sort of stuff.
Richard, what do you think? The fact that, it's going to be quick, but will it have the teeth?
Yeah, I think, you know, there's competing, not interests, but needs here, isn't there? Because, you know, for the parents and the families, they want the closure of having a process that explains exactly what went wrong, so that there's some kind of a sense of justice that is so important to that process of even beginning to try and heal from something like this, which, I mean, I'm guessing you can never really heal from.
Right, because the question remains, why did she do it? And will any of us ever get the answer to that?
I don't think we will, because it goes against everything that we feel as humans.
But what I would like to know is, what is the recruiting process? Is there... It's all well and good saying you've always wanted to be a nurse, but actually, do you have the right mental attitude to do it? These are the things I think the public should start to ask. And this inquiry is very important, because I think the NHS, as far as I'm concerned, is in trouble. And what we need to try and find out is, what is it we could put into place to try and get just another horrific story? They just keep coming and coming and coming. So it says there's a problem with the system. And I think that what you need is outsiders who could have a totally clear view to give opinions, rather than they're talking to themselves. And I don't know how you're going to fix it. I mean, I'm pretty radical when it comes to the NHS, because I just think actually the whole thing is a mess. And this is just another example of the system is at fault.
Well, I guess we'll see what will happen, first of all, on Monday, and then the inquiry, and hopefully it will happen pretty fast. Let's move on, though. Let's leave that horrific case alone and move on to something that's hopefully a bit more full of cheer, hopefully come tomorrow. Are you guys going to be watching it? It's the final of the World Cup. I say the World Cup, I don't say the Women's World Cup, because it's the World Cup. Let's have a look. This fantastic cover on the Mirror. Lioness, we can. Do you think we can, Wilfred?
Well, I tell you what, actually, this is quite an interesting front cover. And I don't want to sort of pour boiling water on it, but it isn't that diverse. I mean, it really sticks out at you that, you know, they look sort of blonde, blue-eyed. And if it was the men's World Cup, it would be very representative of the Britain that we're in, very, very diverse. So I'm going to be watching
the picture or the team or
the whole team,
sport, the women's sport in general?
The whole of it.
Why do you think
I'm going to be watching it and I'm going to be supporting it, and I don't want to be seen as pouring cold water on. But there is something we need to look at is why is it...
What do you think it is?
I don't know, because if you could have the men's team, which is very, very diverse, why doesn't that translate into the women's team?
I mean, it's got to be about funding and media coverage because, as we know, women's sport, and particularly football, has been so underfunded for many, many years. And if a sport is underfunded, then the reality is that many, many women who can and should compete and play professional football, including from diverse backgrounds, simply won't have the access or the opportunity to. And that has to be part of the reason why we see this, as you say, the jarring disparity in the diversity of the men's team. I look at these images and it's really in your face, the lack of representation. This is not a picture of Britain as I see it.
Britain today.
And it would have to be about funding, and I really hope...
But we hope it's about funding, you see, that's what...
The Spanish have really sorted themselves out, haven't they? Because they've really got to the root of it and thought, OK, it's the grassroots where we need to pour the money and look at how far they've come.
When we win tomorrow, what that should do would be a trigger that we really go out and get people from diverse backgrounds, because it's no good we're winning this and then... you know, a couple of years on, this is still the look.
But it should be a trigger. I mean, to get to the final, this should be a trigger. It should be already obvious that people love watching this sport. They love hearing the news about this sport. We don't see it, the marketing money, the sponsoring money, the advertising money pour into this game in anywhere near the stakes that it does with the men's game. So hopefully this in itself will be that necessary corrective, and that will funnel through to the grassroots, as you say. Yeah.
Let's look at the Sunday People, and let's have a look there, because it's also a picture that is not actually diverse. But Serena Wiegmann, her mentality and her approach to this has been quite revolutionary, hasn't it? Because I heard her say, I want to create an environment where people can be who they want to be and they can be their best. And I was talking to her former coach this evening who was saying, we nurture the killer instinct. And when women have the killer instinct, it's a problem. When men have the killer instinct, we celebrate it. What do you think, Rachel, about that?
I mean, I think it's funny that, you know, some people have said, hey, do you want to go and manage the men's team? And she said, no, she's happy where she is.
Yeah.
But I think there's something very interesting there about how these traits or these characteristics are seen. They are very gendered and given negative weight when it comes to women. And so, you know, the killer instinct, or, you know, it comes in across other professions as well, where, you know, if you're a man, you're assertive, if you're a woman, you're bossy, you know, and so it would make sense that would also carry out into the playing field and the sports field as well.
OK, Wilfred, you're going to have to hang on to that.
I wanted to butt in and you stopped me.
You go ahead, you go.
What I wanted to do is add to the point that you were making about the difference between the men's team and the women's team. And
the diversity.
Well, not the diversity thing. I'd moved on from that point. I wanted to say something else I think was probably what the men could take on board, is that it seems when you're watching the women play, they are playing as a team, that there isn't this egos. And I think part of the problems the men have is that they've got their own egos and that doesn't necessarily gel as a team. They're probably all too grand. So there's lessons that can be learned that you just get a sense just watching them. They are really working as a team rather than individual egos shining.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of it comes from Serena Wiegmann. There's so much discussion about the way she coaches or manages.
Oh, it might be women generally. It may be that women are better team players.
I won't comment.
And better managers.
Better at everything.
Well, I'm a great believer that men are talkers and women are doers.
Listen, we've got a minute and a half. I want to talk about the King and Prince William. They're not going to be there. Do you think they should be there?
No, I just think that...
He's the head of the FA.
Yes, but I mean, I'm sure he's got other things to do. What I would say, somebody needs to give him some training about his videos. It was a pretty appalling video with his daughter.
We'll put it into them. They need to contact you straight.
Send them a note.
He needs to get better managers.
Yeah,
it was pretty appalling, that video.
Rachel, what do you think? Yeah, he did meet them before they left, but do you think he should be there? It's a long way. Yes, it's a long way. It's going to be a short time, but...
Yeah, I mean, he should be consistent. So if he's not going to support men's teams, then he should also not. Do you see what I mean? I think it's the inconsistency that's jarring, but in any other sense, not really. I mean, you know, environmentally and all those things. But I just think it's jarring that it's the women, it's the World Cup and it's women. That's what makes us think, hang on a minute.
I suppose, maybe they should give a bit more of an official explanation as to why he's not. Yeah.
They should have flown Kate out there. That would have been the thing to do. Fly her out there. She would. That would be more appropriate. She's there than he's there.
Yeah. OK, so much more to come. We'll see you at 11:30. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Wilfred.